Good morning, day 80. Woo-hoo! It's Monday. The time of this, March 21st of the year 2022. How about that? 3/21/22. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. So I'm spending some more time in the book of Job. And this morning I focused on a fourth character that comes into play, Elihu. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I think depending on your translation, it might be different. Anyway. And the overall, concept that came to me during my prayer and meditation was the knowing versus understanding. And there's a difference, right? You can know something. You don't need to understand something. And understanding something doesn't necessarily lead to knowing. Well, isn't that weird? And, like we know that gravity exists. Even if we don't fully understand, we know that there is an explanation. Somebody out there understands. But even before anybody understood it or could explain it, you know it. Like it is just something that you know, that you have to deal with. It is something. And you know that it is something. You don't have to understand how a car works to know how to drive it. So they're two very different things. And a lot of people even have a lot of what they think is knowledge or understanding, or maybe they academically understand something. You can read about how something works, but until you're out there and you experience it, and you see how it really all works together through experience, that's when understanding can also transfer to knowing. And I think that's also part of what you hear a lot of people in their faith walk talk about. Like they can't necessarily explain it. They don't fully understand it, but they know it. And there's times in life, even with falling in love, we don't fully understand it and why we love certain people and how that all works. But we know it. We know that it's true and that it really happens. So there's a lot of, those are just a few little things that came to my mind just now as I was, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth until it comes out. I kind of know what's in my head and then it comes out and then anyway. So why does this have anything to do with Elihu and Job? Elihu arrives on the scene and he basically says, look, I've been keeping my mouth shut, been listening to you fools talk, and I've been giving you the respect because you're my elders, but I just can't keep my mouth shut any longer. And you all are not helping Job understand what's really going on here. And you're not defending God well enough either, is one of the things that he comes in and says. And he says, I have the Spirit of God in me, and I'm going to come in and defend God. And I'm not going to listen to you insult him anymore, Job. And of course, I'm paraphrasing. I'm going to take a break here. For those of you on video, this is what we're here for. We're rising and shining. There is the sun peeking up over the horizon. Beautiful blue skies. Birds are chirping. And Elihu, he says a lot. There's a few pages, so I'm definitely not going to do it justice. But there are a few things that really I was like, oh yeah, I forget who God is too. Because we get so stuck in our human experience of things. And we're limited. We have 5 senses. We're very limited. And we limit God by our 5 senses. And yet he created us not to be limited, though. And I think that's actually the benefit of not only reading his word, but really meditating on it and trying to get out of your humanness for even just a few minutes. And Elihu talks about, even God's breath is in my body and helps me live. It's not my breath, it's God's breath. And I think even bigger than that, like we often think of our lives, it's not just our life. We are a part of a greater thing that's happening. And we don't understand it fully. And a lot of us seek. There's a lot of seekers in this world that not necessarily of the Christian tradition. I think everybody understands that there's something in us that seeks understanding. But what precedes this is sort of a knowing, right? Like we know that there's more to this. A lot of us do. Some of us stay shut down to it intentionally. I was definitely in that space for quite a while because my limited, naive, young girl, understanding of things led me to a wrong understanding. I was watching people in my life who professed to believe in God, and they were suffering. They were in depression, suffering from alcoholism, anger, all these things. And so I thought, in my naivete, and this is what, if you stay stuck in your humanness and your own logic, like this is the kind of explanations you're going to get for yourself. God equals pain and depression and suffering and rules and no fun. Well, who wants that? Luckily, somebody was able to get through to me and just gently say, hey, just give it a try. What have you got to lose? You've always got this life that you've been living over here, fully self-centered and focused on fun and YOLO and all of that. You can always go back to it. You have free will. I was like, okay. I can give it a try. I'll give it a whirl. And here I am about 15 years later, still seeking and still feeling like I'm at the bottom of the understanding mountain, but feeling like I know that there is something bigger at work, and also letting go of the need to understand it all. Elihu goes on to say, what does it matter if you're good or if you're bad? That doesn't affect God. Your goodness or your badness has no real effect on him. He's God. He's way up here. He's like something other. And yet we all go around trying to live performance-based lives, and then we judge each other with the same thing. And then we put all of those limitations on him. And not that it doesn't matter if you're good or bad, because that was sort of the conclusion or the space that Job allowed himself to go into. Like, what does it all matter? Here I've been so good, and look at what it got me. So there was part of him that sort of understood, but not really. Like, that's not what it's about. And yet it is. Like, there is and I'm not even sure, I'm probably not going to do this justice. This is just a beginner who I feel like there's a crack, of light that I'm like, I think I'm starting to see. But if it's actually his breath, the Creator's breath in me right now, that it even is allowing me to have these thoughts, to have eyes to see what I'm seeing, which is beautiful, by the way. Experience what I'm experiencing, putting all of these five senses to create sort of one unified experience. And I'm not even the one responsible for it. I just get to experience it and be grateful for it. And I can know that even if I don't understand how it all works. I don't understand. I'm not a doctor, so I haven't studied biology. I don't fully understand how my, eyeballs talk to my brain. And, I know in general that, I'm breathing in oxygen and it gets converted chemically and in my blood, but I don't have to understand any of it to know it, like that it happens. And when I can just be in reverence and in awe and in gratitude that I even get to experience this thing called life, and that there's a creator that thought enough of me to let a part of his uniqueness be expressed through my uniqueness, then I'm like, well, who am I to say whether or not I get to live in a fancy house or drive a nice car or not have sickness? There's nothing I can do to earn that or not earn it. It rains on the good as much as it does the evil. Like, weather happens to all of us. And it's how we relate to life that allows or blocks God's expression to come through us, because that's where he, for whatever reason, decided to give us free will so that we could freely choose to love him, to love others. Some of us choose to love others but not love him. We stay just on the human, and think it's all about us and being good to each other and seeking approval from others and accolades in the eyes of other humans. And then some of us realize that there's a higher thing at work, and that we just, the fact that I have something here in my hand that I can talk to anybody and just put my thoughts out into the atmosphere, and God can help them land on whoever they land on through technology, and how this even interacts through space and gets where it needs to go. Like, that's pretty miraculous. But the fact that I even woke up and I was breathing, I go to sleep and I'm completely unconscious all night, and my body still does, life still does its thing. And I don't have to think about that. Like, when we get back to beyond us, and that's how, and tomorrow we'll see how God even comes in and then responds to Job. And Job finally is like, okay, like, I'm so sorry. I'll stop complaining. Who am I to complain? But there's nothing, God doesn't need us, which then means that he doesn't even need good or bad behavior from us. He wants our hearts. He wants to be in relationship with us, and for us to really know who he is. But a lot of us don't want to just give that over for whatever reason. There's lots of reasons, I think. We first want to understand. We want it all to make logical sense. We want to understand it. We want to have tangible evidence of, like, before I'm going to put my faith in you. My faith is so important that I need to fully understand it before I give it over. that's all about the self, 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 self. And that's what he's asking us to give up. Because when we give it up, we also realize that it's not even ours to begin with. We are just a walking, when we allow ourselves to be, because again, he gives us free will, which is freaking like, what? Like, it's amazing. It's a miracle. He gives us free will to even acknowledge that I'm a walking, talking miracle and a part of him, and that his breath, it's his breath, it's not my breath. I didn't do anything to create my own breath. Now I could like hold my breath and even try to stop it, but even then I'd pass out and my body would start breathing again. I don't even know how else to really give words to the profoundness of it all when you really stop and think about just the isness of life, like what you're experiencing. And we get so caught up in like, oh, I've got to pay my bills and I've got to raise these children and it's all on me and it's all on my shoulders. Like we're all walking around like little G gods with our egos. I heard somebody, oh, there was a great acronym for ego. Oh, anyway, I'll remember it and come back tomorrow. But I just don't have any other words. I just know that I know that I know. And I also know that I don't need to understand it to know it and to allow the experience of it all to just leave me in so much awe that I just, want to cry tears of joy. Like, and yet I go around blocking God almost every step. It's like, I think this is what, when we've heard a lot of the prophets and people of the Bible say, and we'll continue to hear as we go through the New Testament, that this is why God requires that continual posture of prayer and, the comparison to daily bread. Like we are, because he gave us free will, it's the tension that we live in. And we have to allow our connection to God. This is what I believe, or whatever's greater, whatever you believe in, but there's something bigger, and believe in the power of that, and let that be your guiding thing. But that takes constant work and attention. And yet, if you're able to do that, it actually eases the burden of life. Life is not as hard if you put the time and energy that you're doing down here, trying to people please and do all the things right and follow whatever man-made rules of goodness there are. And if we just let go of that and focus this way, yes, it takes some time and energy, but it makes the rest of life here so much easier. It takes the pressure off. It's not all up to me. I'm not God. He is. Like, I'm going to let him be God. I'm going to let him be in control, because guess what? He is anyway. And I don't have to carry that burden. I don't have to make things happen. Now, I do have to listen and pay attention and surrender and do what he's asking me to do. It's not like I'm just going to be a potato. So there's an active partnering or submission. Anyway, I could just go on and on. I don't think I'm really doing it justice. I'm going to just enjoy my breath and the fact that we even get to experience this miracle called life. And I just won't get to know. I don't have to understand. The burden of understanding, it is a burden. And I'm letting that go. All right. Love you. Happy Monday. Or whatever day it is. and where you're listening, and maybe however you're feeling, maybe you can just let that go and focus on the fact that you've got breath in your lungs, and that in and of itself is something to be grateful for. And there's nothing that you can do to create your own breath.